she said, "Robert, we are worried about you. You weren't yourself at all during the whole weekend. We couldn't get a contact with you. We were walking in Hyde Park, and you were going to show us a cafe, a coffee shop. And all you said was, over there is the coffee shop. And then you ran along, all by yourself to the coffee shop, 100 meters in front of us. And when we got into the coffee shop, you had already ordered your own coffee and had drunk it. And said, let's go, let's go, let's go. And you just looked so, you were so distant. We couldn't recognize you. And my mother said, I think you have to apply for art school. I didn't apply for art school, but that year I applied for writing and media course because I had an idea that I wanted to tell stories. But I didn't have the courage when I was standing in Muji. But through that course, I had the opportunity to go to Copenhagen for an exchange year. And in Copenhagen, I had the opportunity to do montages. I met people, the montage group there, who did radio documentaries, the Danish documentary. And I learned some of that craft that Klaus, you know a bit about, and that tradition. And then, after that, I had the opportunity to apply for a school here in Stockholm, which is only 100 meters away from here, the Dramatiska Institutet, where Bengt and Lotta are the head teachers. And I could dwell more into this craft, this passion, that became a passion more and more. And through that I could also go to Nordic Feature Conference, and I learned how to do the craft in Norway, where I also could do some things with Berit, Hedeman, and Karin, Kjetil, and Line, whom some of you are all here as well. And then I could, through that, go to international feature conferences and be very shy, be very, shy. But also learn through people who all share this idea of how to do the craft and to share the passion. And that's the reason we're sitting here in this room today. That we will during these days listen to things that will inspire us, maybe make us angry, but in somehow find discussions and how we can delve into this. But the reason I really, really liked radio and why I liked it so much was because of the things that you could create these inner films in your head. Because I think the human being has two features or two things that I really, really think are interesting. For we are the only animal on land that can take a conscious breath. We can take a breath and then hold it. And also, we can daydream. We can be in one physical place and then in our head place ourselves in a completely different place. The capacity to daydream or to think of pictures in your head. And one of these elements is very, very important when it comes to making radio documentaries. At least one of them. But two of these aspects or elements are very, very important if you're a free diver. You see, the free diver, he has to take one breath and then go down to the bottom of the sea. And a free diver I once met, he said, when he was standing over the lake, he took one big breath, dived in, and as he was going down, 10 meters, 20 meters, 30 meters, 40 meters, in his head, he was actually on a cliff in the Stockholm archipelago. He was sitting there in the sun, and his wife was there, and his little daughter played in the water. And he had a little picnic basket with hot cinnamon buns and coffee. And that, the image he had in his head while he was going down 50, 60, 70, 80 meters down. And the possibility we have as documentary makers or producers is that we can have this unique possibility to create this inner landscape that we can show to an audience. But one thing which is important in that is that it takes time. It takes time to delve into that. I'm sitting in the radio house together with my colleagues. Håkan, Ylva, Marie-Jeanette, Magnus, and many of us. And we get stories into the house from other people. And our job is to find the story, to carve into the material and find the inner story of the thing they want to tell. And find their landscape of what they want to show. But for me, when I was at school over there, 100 meters away, I found my individual voice through a personal story. It doesn't mean that to find the personal language or the way you want to tell a story, you don't need to do a personal story for it. But that was the case for me. See, this is my grandfather. Sigurd Lövgren. He was a success story. He was a very, very good accountant. He was a family man. But beneath all that, there was a darkness. He had an illness. And that illness took over his life somehow. And when I was 7, he committed suicide. And that, for me, was a story that hung on to me when I grew up. And I wanted to find out what that was. What was that darkness? What was it? What was it? How was it for the family? And it was like I was walking around in that landscape, in that darkness, to find out what that was. And then I had the opportunity, because I went to school, to delve into that. And because that was my home turf, it was easy for me to get access. But that was also my part of finding out what that was like. And to tell a story that I wanted to be relevant for others. And then, after I did that, I was pretty tired of my own story. I wanted to reach into other worlds, lift my view. So, I met Joachim. You see, Joachim, I wanted you to get to know him because that's the guy you're carrying on your bags. And my boss outside said today that she's always thought that that was me. But it's not me. Joachim is actually a guy that went to a special school in the suburb of Stockholm. And when I was with him, he was in a so-called little group, which meant that these were the guys who couldn't fit into the usual class. They were either violent or they couldn't fit in. But Joachim, he wasn't out. He was inwards. He had all his words inside him somehow. He had all these different diagnoses that made it really hard for him to go to a big school class. And what I really wanted to do was to that I wanted him to show his world. So I went over to this little group, this little classroom of just 5 boys, and I brought 5 microphones. And I said, now do you want to record your own world around you? And 4 of them didn't want to. But Joachim wanted. So he went around with a mono microphone, and I had a stereo microphone, and he was recording the world around him. And the thing with Joachim was that he had a secret that he didn't tell anyone. He didn't tell me, he didn't tell his teachers, he had barely no friends, but he didn't tell those either. And the secret was that nobody knew was that he was bullied in school. And his mother found out somehow that something was wrong. But she didn't know how to get that out of him. And she told me the story of how it happened. And then we met up, the mother, Joachim, and I, on his porch at home. And the mother, Joachim, and the mother speaks to each other, and he tells the story of how it came along. But to get to that, his mother, sorry, the thing is that his mother is the one who finds out that he is bullied in a very specific way. And I'm going to play you this now, how she finds out that his son, Joachim, is bullied. Are you following me? The script will be on screen.
Jag märker att någonting är fel. Du har alltid pratat med mig. Du har alltid kunnat prata med mig väldigt bra.
Det här är min mamma, Monica.
Och helt plötsligt så är du tyst. Du pratar inte längre. Och då förstår jag att det är någonting som inte stämmer. När jag frågar hur skoldagen har varit så jag får inte så mycket svar. Den är bra, så räcker det. Och jag vill ju veta mera. Jag säger till dig att jag vill prata med dig. Och då går jag in i ditt rum och jag tar papper och penna med mig. Jag tar en saccosäck och sätter mig ner i ditt rum och ber dig sätta dig ner på din säng. Och så talar jag om hur jag har haft min dag på mitt jobb. Vad jag har gjort för någonting. Och sen ber jag dig att berätta din skoldag. Från det att du ställer cykeln i cykelstället och tills dess att du kommer hem. Och då får jag höra vad du är med om. Vad de andra barnen i din klass kallar dig. Vad de gör mot dig. Vad du får höra hela dagarna från det att du kommer och tills dess att du går hem. Att du inte vill ha rast. Du vill inte träffa de andra barnen. Du vill i stort sett bara komma hem. Och just det som de andra barnen kallar dig. Jag ska döda dig din jävel om du gör si och så. Vilken jävla ful cykel du har och hota dig när du ska gå på toaletten och allt.
So, when we carve into these stories to find what the inner core of the story is, what is it in a story that we all, or the listener, can relate to? I think that is a question of time, that we have to it takes time to make a documentary. And we have to make the bosses and the directors of our companies to understand that these documentaries that we are doing are of vital importance, and it takes time to dwell and to find the inner aspects of the theme or all the things we want to tell. To find, there is Gunnar Ekelöf, and I'm not sure, Swedes, if I translated this correctly, but the core in you is also the core in others. Stories has to be relevant. For example, being bullied, that's a theme that we all can relate to, but the thing is that the secret that he's keeping and how the parent will find out about it, for example. But if it is the case that the radio documentary has this fantastic possibility to show this landscape, this inner film that we can travel into, where your radio personality really can show, then we as a publisher have a great responsibility. So what inner films are we showing? And what stories are we telling? A few years back we did a story about the voters of the Swedish Democrats, the far-right party in Sweden that had, during the decade, had a rise in voters, becoming the third biggest party in Sweden. And we wanted to find out what sort of voters were they? Who were they? Everybody was talking about them, but very few were talking with them. So Måns Mosesson, a reporter that will actually talk about this stuff when he comes here tomorrow. He will delve into more of that. But I want to tell you a bit about this story. This is about Lucia. Lucia is a thing in Sweden during winter, 13th of December. And when I was a boy going to school, you always picked the school Lucia. That was a big thing. Often it was a blonde, and it was a pretty girl that could sing, and she would be the school Lucia. A big thing in Sweden. And every year the Swedish television, the national television, have a national Lucia that sings in Uppsala. And they record that and they broadcast it on the Lucia Day. And this year, Astrid was picked. Astrid is adopted from India, a 14-year-old girl. And when it was broadcasted, the internet and the forums were overflown with racist comments, hatred, and so on. And Astrid saw some of this through her friends. And the unique thing here was that Måns, he actually found one of the guys who had written, because normally they're anonymous and you can't, they're hiding behind their desk or their keyboard. And Kjell, who you will hear, he did an interview up here in the radio house. And Astrid is the girl who is the Lucia. I will play you the clip, the first clip.
Ja, okej. Ska vi se. Jag skrev så här. Det finns en anledning att leta upp en ljushårig Lucia om man ska följa traditionen. Lucia kommer av latinets lux i genitiv lucis som betyder ljus. Angående SVT:s Lucia så är det naturligtvis självklart att vi svenskar måste bjuda in invandrare i våra traditioner med utropstecken. Det ska vara ironiskt då. Hur ska de annars känna sig välkomna hit? Och detta ska naturligtvis även gälla Lucia, så här kommer mitt förslag.
Just det, du skriver här någon sorts egen tanke om det här.
Ja, det röda bandet kan till exempel symbolisera en kvinna som blivit gruppvåldtagen och blöder från underlivet om man har en svensk Lucia. Alternativt kan det symbolisera att statskassan blöder om man har en Lucia som inte är född i Sverige. Okej, det var inte så snällt skrivet då. Men jag var väldigt arg när jag skrev det där. Det är skrivet i ilska liksom. Och...
Men varför kopplar du i det här fallet en 14-årig tjej till liksom gruppvåldtäkter och att statskassan blöder?
Nej, det är egentligen inte. Utan det är egentligen, det är inte riktat mot henne egentligen. Utan det är riktat mot Sveriges Television då. Och egentligen riktar det sig mot hur de ser på invandrare. De motiverar väl det med att det ska vara mot rasism och sådana saker. Men om man tittar på antalet inlägg där på avpixlat, det ser ut som om man har skapat rasism istället egentligen.
Ja, fast rasismen finns ju redan hos dig uppenbarligen. Rasismen lever ju redan i dig när du tänker att hon inte är svensk bara för att hon har en annan hudfärg.
Ja, och jag tror att det är så för de andra också, de som har skrivit det, att de hade kanske inte ändrat åsikt i alla fall. Liksom, så att, hur många inlägg var det förresten? Åh, herregud. Det kan vara möjligt. Nästan 4 000 kommentarer, det var ju helt sanslöst.
Jag fick se liksom de första skriverierna.
Eftersom programmet är inspelat i förväg är den här torsdagen en alldeles vanlig skoldag för Astrid. Medan reaktionerna sprider ut sig över nätet sitter hon med ett par vänner utanför hemkunskapssalen när en kille kommer fram och visar på sin mobil. Han tar fram avpixlat-artikeln med rubriken om den kolsvarta Lucia.
Kolla här vad de har skrivit. Det var en bild på mig också på rapparna som var lagda tillsammans. Okej. Ja, så när vi började titta på det då det var... Jag tror bara det kändes som ett hål i magen. Som att det var typ frost i magen. Det kändes liksom så utlämnande på något sätt. Alltså det var liksom att det var det första. Men alltså jag tror darrar på rösten. Jag vet inte riktigt. Jag är nog bara chockad att... Men bara veta att det finns. Att det finns ett sånt. Alltså, någonstans finns folk som sitter och skriver. Och så det är det som gör mig rädd. Att man inte vet. Man vet inte vilka och man vet inte hur stort och hur djupt det sitter i dem. Och det var det som gjorde ont.
And Måns did this interview with Kjell here in the house, and that's what I want to take the example of here. With his, because I think he's brilliant in the way he's interviewing. He's critical, but he's very curious. He's open and he's sharp, and he makes Kjell talk. And the thing with this program is that something happened after the interview, and Måns phoned me. I remember he phoning me up. He said something happened that I could never have known would happen. I have to play it to you. And the thing with what you want in a story also, when it comes to stories, that someone is someone in the beginning of a program, and then during the course of the program, he or she changes. And what happened here, maybe the person didn't change, but we don't know that. But what happened here is that Kjell is turning to the microphone, and even though Astrid isn't there, she's talking straight to her and feels the need to apologize. I'll play that.
Man skriver om någonting man inte riktigt vet och det måste vara någonting som ligger djupare i den människan. Och jag tror att många av dem som skriver det beror på någonting annat. Det är någonting annat som ligger bakom. Det kan inte bara vara att det var mörkare att säga okej, men det är liksom så ogenomtänkt att kunna hata en person för en sluta. Det känns som att alltså, men jag tycker inte om dig. Nej, varför då? För att du har grön tröja på dig. Men varför tycker du om mig? Jo, men jag tycker inte om för en grön. Alltså, vad finns logiken egentligen? För att det spelar ingen roll om du har grön tröja på dig. För att du är ändå du och jag är ändå jag. Och det spelar, alltså... Ja. Har de hört mitt skratt till exempel? Har de hört vad jag... Alltså... För mig är det jag. Mina rädslor, mina förhoppningar, mina drömmar, allting sånt som vem som helst oavsett utseende har. Och det är det som definierar en människa, tror jag. Jag är född i Indien. Svart hår, mörka ögon. Vad är problemet, really?
Det är ju sån här kritik som är väldigt, väldigt hårt att ta för vuxen och sen så tar det den åldern. Det är rätt brutalt faktiskt.
Kjell sitter kvar framför dataskärmen. Han stirrar på sin kommentar och på de nästan 4 000 andra.
om jag hade varit i den situationen så hade jag upplevt det som väldigt, väldigt jobbigt och, liksom, och trakasserande. Det hade jag gjort. Så att jag ber om ursäkt. Och för att själva början, alltså på Lucia-tåget, det gjorde det väldigt bra faktiskt. Och det såg bra ut. Ursäkten skulle ha kommit tidigare kanske, och sådana saker också, inte ett år efteråt. Jag har ingen krav på att du ska acceptera den ursäkten. Jag förstår om du inte gör det. Så vill jag säga.
Yeah, Måns is coming during the week, and you can ask him questions about that. What inner films? The inner film. What are we showing, and who is telling it? There's another. We have P1 dokumentär, we have P4 dokumentär, P2 dokumentär, and we have P3 dokumentär. And P3 dokumentär are the stories about Swedish stories that happened in the near history, like the killing of the Prime Minister Olof Palme, or scandals, or conflicts, or catastrophes that has happened. And usually they're happening in Sweden. However, we did last year's 3 stories that happened outside of Sweden. It was the massacre in Utöya, and it was the military coup in Chile, and it was the Battle of Mostar in the Bosnian war conflict. And afterwards, because usually if we didn't done a P3 documentary, if it was done outside of Sweden, we were labeling P3 documentary the world. However, on these 2, we didn't label it like that, because we had the belief that in Chile, it caused so many refugees coming to Sweden. So it was part of our history, that tens of thousands of people with their families were affected by this story living in Sweden today. Same thing with the Bosnian War in Mostar. And Utöya, even though it didn't affect the people fleeing here and it was a Norwegian thing, even though a few Swedes were actually on the island. But afterwards it was interesting that the listeners that reacted really hard and said, why are you not labeling Chile and Mostar P3 documentary the world? And Utöya didn't say anything about. And I think that has to do with the cultural closeness. Even though the things that happened in Chile and Mostar has affected families that have grown up here and still living with that story. And what we did with the military coup in Chile, what I think is really important when it comes to creating these inner films that I'm talking about, is to find the details that become images in your head. And when we did the military coup in Chile, we appointed Martin Espeleta, a guy who also had a history of fleeing with his family, but from Argentine. And because of his knowledge of things, he could see it possibly differently. And he wanted to tell the story through the growth of a pregnant belly. You see, Carlos and Alejandra met during the military coup. They were socialists, part of the even further left than Allende somehow, but part of Allende. And when Allende gets killed and Pinochet takes the power, they have documents. They have documents that has to be hidden, because they're part of a political group that if they're found, they will be killed, they might be tortured, all of those things will happen. And Carlos and Alejandra during this coup, they fall in love, underground, in the basement. And Alejandra gets pregnant. And as the program progresses, and as the military coup progresses, her belly is growing. And during one episode, they have to, when it's getting really, really intense, and people are being arrested, people are taken into torture, they have to hide secret documents that they have at the political apartment. And they have to go there, and they have to somehow hide these documents and take them on the streets through the military to get them away and get them burned. And this is how they solve that.
Som medlemmar i MIRs informationsavdelning har de tillgång till ytterst känslig information. Hamnar informationen i militärens händer kommer många människor att dö.
Det vi fick göra på en gång, det var att plocka alla papper som kunde vara farliga, om man säger så. Och vi hade inte så mycket hemma hos oss, men vi hade en enhet som vi använde politiskt inom partier som låg 2 kvarter hemifrån oss. Vi skulle inte kunna gömma där, utan vi transporterade dem där vi bodde. Ifall där kunde vi i lugnare former bränna de här sakerna. Och då fick vi det, jag skulle gömma det i min mage.
Hade var gravid i 8:e månaden då. Vi kunde runt omkring magen så att säga knyta ihop de papperna som vi behövde transportera.
Och då gömde jag saker mellan trosorna och byxorna eller klänningar. Det var inte så svårt eftersom jag hade en stor mage.
Och vi var välklädda och försökte vara så pass normala så att ingen polis skulle ta oss. Och säga. Därför att det fanns många poliser. Vi var 2 kvarter från La Moreda och det betyder att det var mycket poliser och militärer runt omkring hela området. Den där promenaden, jag minns det var inte en lätt promenad. Därför att vi visste att vi var tvungna att göra det på rätt sätt.
Och det var bråttom, alltså vi fick promenera dit och gick upp. Och man såg så småningom hur de sprang, militärerna, och ut på gatan. Och det enda jag tänkte på, hur fan ska vi göra nu? Vi hade böcker, vi hade skivor, vi hade en hel del saker som kunde avslöja vilka vi var. Så vi brände skivor, vi brände böcker tills en toalettstol sprack.
Ändå där inne i
lägenhet. Det svåraste var vinylskivor. Det gick inte. De fick inte plats i den här soptunnan som fanns inne i lägenheten. Så man skulle bryta sönder dem. Det minns jag. Och det gjorde väldigt ont att byta Victor Jaras och Intimani och allt det där.
So here the belly somehow changed and made them take these documents out. And the thing with the belly later is that as the belly grows, the man, Carlos, is actually taken and is tortured, but he is released and they flee to Sweden. And here the child is born and he grows up and he takes on the struggle of his parents against Pinochet and against all that, and somehow he becomes part of the story. And to have that detail, to find the inner detail that we can see, because the military coup in Chile is a big, big story, but to find the detail that goes all the way through the end. That's how we constructed the military coup. So it would possibly become an inner film that was going to play in the head. To round up, even though we're living in a time where the technology is happening very fast, the technology, and the rise of the pod, and we're living, I think, in the golden digital age, and it's just in the beginning of it. And because we have this possibility to create these inner films, these personal stories that can travel from our mouth, our head, our gut, into one person who's wearing headphones. We have this great opportunity right now to have the golden age of the radio doc, and we're seeing that happening. I mean, Shittown, for example. Who would have thought that such a long story 10 years ago, whenever it was, would create such a success that the listener actually wants that? Because I think the listener want long stories. They want short. There's no analyze of this. That some say, oh, you want 30 seconds on Instagram, and others saying, no, you want 10 hours of a radio doc. But as long as we have the time to delve into this and find the stories and find the inner films that we're going to tell, we will prevail. But just to add another thing about that, is that even though all great things have happened with technology, there is nothing more powerful than it is for us human beings to actually create inner films and to have the capacity to actually daydream. Thank you.